Hello, amazing educators. Welcome to Let's Talk Teaching. We are here to discuss a very, very important topic, something that you've requested, and we are here to unpack it for you. My name is Philippa Fabry, and I'm joined by Wilene Wiggill, one of our OTs here in Port Elizabeth, and we are going to be talking about teacher burnout and stress. Hello, welcome.
Hi,
I was asking you, were you stressed getting here?
No, but now we are.
Literally, we are lucky that in PE nothing is too far. So when I said to Wilene, why don't you just come to the studio instead of us doing this at our houses? I said, how soon can you get here? And so we basically finished work at 5:30, got into our cars. Well, I didn't have to get very far, but you had to get here. And here we are, and we're talking about teacher stress and burnout. So we really, really want to invite you to listen in, to kick off your shoes, grab a cup of coffee, take the cell phone, put it away, and just spend 45 minutes with us talking about sort of these issues. This is for educators. Let's Talk Teaching is a concept that we really, really want to create a safe space for teachers to come and talk about the things that are really kind of making your work difficult. And I think burnout and stress is something that we can all relate to. Doesn't matter what profession you're in, right? We all have various levels of stress. And if we don't look after ourselves, then burnout is sort of the result. So tell us where you're watching. We want to know, are you here in Port Elizabeth? Where are you watching from? Yes, it will be recorded. Of course, we always want to have a recording because life happens and we can't always attend live. So we make it available afterwards. And we will have questions at the end. So while you are sort of getting comfortable, taking your shoes off, grabbing a cup of coffee, making sure the kids are looked after, tune in with us and let's talk about this issue. So, Wilene, tell us a little bit about what an occupational therapist actually does.
Oh, it's quite a broad field, Philippa, and it's really lovely to be able to be in a position where we can help a variety of clients. So we work with children, we work with adults, we work with physical, we work with mental health challenges, and I think that's really where the unique place of OT comes in. You know, we work a lot in schools, work a lot with teachers, and then from the mental health aspect, we can really understand a bit more of the environment that teachers are finding themselves in and then struggling in, keeping up with all the requirements and the admin and the children and the things that are happening.
Yeah, I think people think teaching is just about pitching up and going into a classroom and delivering lessons. But we know that a teacher's role is way more than that. I think as teachers, we wear many different hats. And not all of us are admin, what's the right word?
Gurus.
Yeah, I think admin is something that we have to do. We don't necessarily enjoy it, but it's one of those things we cannot, we wouldn't be able to do our work without the admin. So, yeah, you mentioned that you see a lot of patients, or do you call them patients?
Patients or clients, yeah.
So a lot of clients are coming to you with stress and burnout. So what are they complaining about? I mean, how do they end up with you?
So I think the important part is we're seeing it more and more, and I don't know whether it's because we are experiencing more burnout or whether people are just more comfortable talking about, hey, I'm not coping and I'm not dealing with what's happening in life. We're seeing extreme exhaustion. We're seeing increased frustration, getting very irritable, fighting with the spouse at home, or being short-tempered with the children, not managing to get through the tasks in the day. And then sometimes some wheels are starting to fall off, not as healthy as they used to be, not making time to eat properly, not making time to go to the gym. So really we start seeing this big ripple effect of things just not happening the way they should be.
And I would think that psychologists also would play a role with, gosh, I'm not coping so well. My life is spiraling out of control. I don't feel I'm on top of things. So I can go to a psychologist and I can talk about everything. Whereas you tend to, and I might be wrong, are tending to help me with with giving me practical solutions, right?
Yeah. So because OT is so activity-based, we focus a lot on doing practical strategies that we can implement on a daily basis to help just manage where we can. The big things, the heavy things, we do refer to psychologists because they're very valuable in terms of that. But the day-to-day planning and just getting a bit of balance back into everyday life is really where we can put our focus.
So are you able to, when somebody comes to you, how are they expressing what's going on? And do they know that they have the burnout when they come to you? Or are you able to just listen and say, okay, I think this is what's going on here. Now let's look at your day-to-day activities and see, where are you not coping? How's unpack it a little bit for us in terms of what are the symptoms, what are the issues that are things.
So we see it from two sides. So we see people coming and saying, listen, my colleague was diagnosed with burnout, and I'm seeing a lot of what I saw in her, I'm seeing it in myself. Is that what I'm experiencing? Other people are just coming and saying, I'm really annoyed, I'm constantly anxious, I'm having panic attacks. I'm not getting through things that I would normally breeze through. It feels like the world is on my shoulder. I'm in this hamster wheel and it just keeps on spinning. And then we take a step back and say, okay, let's look at the bigger picture. Let's unpack everything and then see, what are we spending time on? What is not balancing at the moment? Where's the things not working as they should? Where's the wheel alignment a bit out?
Yeah.
And then from there start working towards
on a plan of action or some kind of a program. So let's look at teachers now. So teachers have to deal with, if I look at the day-to-day of a teacher, right? So you have all the admin on planning your day, all the lesson prep, the writing of lessons, or making sure that your timetable is aligned, and planning the day in theory. So you plan it all beautifully. That's the one part. Then you come to school and now you've got to deliver the goods. Now you've got to be able to manage all the things that go on. It's a phone call that takes you away from, your time where you're supposed to be able to sit down and just relax. You are now running to the office, you're making a phone call, you're whatever. So everything kind of can easily get out of sync. How quickly can you adapt to a different change in routine, or something that comes that you're not expecting, to happen? So it's planning, it's execution, and obviously there are certain things that are out of your control. And the more, I suppose, the more healthy, or the more your mental ability is able to adapt and be versatile. And then after school, it's again, now I need to record, I need to plan again, I need to get my head right, I need to switch off, and now I need to be a mom, and I need to be a wife, and I need to be a daughter or a son, and it's kind of flitting between those different roles, right?
Yeah.
And we were just talking now about some months of the year are worse for teachers than others, right? So again, in exam term, June, you have all the papers to set, you have all the papers to mark, you have all the memos, you have all of that, and then December or November, you have it again. So yeah, I think if teachers are able to manage the planning, the prep, the day-to-day in a kind of logical way and not get thrown off balance or not get not be tripped up in such a way that you are not able to get back into alignment. It's all of that. So I guess what my question is for teachers who are experiencing this burnout, what is the best way, because they still need to carry on with their work, right? You still need to pitch up every day, even though you're right at the end of your tether. You're almost at the end of that candle. You're burning yourself out. How do they know that they're there? So how do you know that you're on the road to burnout? And try and stop it before it gets too late, you know?
So we really wanted to not get there.
Yeah.
We want to catch it before, you know, because once we get to burnout,
it's almost too late.
It's where we
hard.
are talking about taking extended periods off work to physically and emotionally recover. And it's quite a heavy thing. So getting before that, when you start seeing something that normally takes me an hour is now taking me 2. I find myself eating too much or forgetting to eat. I find myself scrolling endlessly on my phone or going to bed at 7, even though I know, I have so much stuff to do. When we start picking up these small changes in our normal behavior, that's really when we have to start being more aware of, I maybe need a little bit of a reset. I maybe need to check in with myself, Are there some boundaries that I need to be a bit more firm with? Are there some things that I can take out of my day? Some things that I don't need to do? Some things that maybe it's time that I, pass it on to someone else to maybe help me a bit or just to share the load. So noticing those small changes in yourself. And I think something that's very hard to do with that is listening to feedback. When you start being maybe not necessarily called in by a principal, but where your colleagues tell you, you're a bit spicy there today in that meeting. A little bit
short, a little bit irritable.
Maybe start noticing these things and not to take it personally as in they're criticizing me, but maybe someone else is noticing sign. There's a little bit of a red flag popping up there. Something that's also a bit more scary and a bit more serious is if we start seeing an increase in unhealthy coping mechanisms. So if we start abusing alcohol or other things, then we also need to be starting to be aware that we might need some extra help.
Yeah. I think it's so vital to just listen to those signs. We don't always listen to our bodies because we just go. And I think it's just that awareness of, okay, things are getting a little bit out of balance here. What do I need to do? So, okay, they come to your office, they chat to you. You can hear that there's something there that's not right. What is your next step?
So we like to start with almost a formal assessment. So I can see exactly where you are using standardized assessment, using some self-report questionnaires. So I can really see where you're at and what is the most pressing issue at this stage. What do we need to prioritize?
Okay.
And then from there we start to make a plan. It's not just about my goals for you as a client or a patient, but it's really about what's more important for you.
So can you prioritize areas then?
Definitely.
So what would be some examples then?
Something like I'm struggling to make enough time to spend time with my kids. I feel like I'm plunking them in front of the TV and just feeding them chicken nuggets every night from the air fryer, you know.
And then sitting marking papers
until 2 a.m, and I have been like ships in the night with my husband, missing each other completely. That is maybe an area that you want to prioritize. And then we work on that and say, okay, what can we do? Chicken nuggets and chips out the air fryer is perfectly fine. We just don't want it to be an every night thing. So we have to look at gauging what can we manage, what needs to give, where can we take a bit of time, and how can we, shift the priorities a bit to align with your values and what's important for you.
Would you suggest as part of the coping skills to go and speak to a therapist as well, a psychologist or a psychiatrist, if it's indicated?
If it's indicated, we would definitely refer on. Sometimes just having some medication that can help you sleep better at night will just give you a little bit more oomph to manage during the day, because if you are sleeping poorly and then having to run around the whole day, it tends to spiral a bit, that fatigue. So it really depends on a case-by-case situation, but if there's a need, we definitely refer to the whole team.
Because let's talk about an adult with ADHD. Let's talk about teachers who may have comorbidities with, let's say, an ADHD or depression or something, and they are struggling to cope. So when you talk about medication, I almost want to say you can't have a plan with a comorbidity and not have even just short-term medication just to get at least back up to a level that's manageable again.
Definitely. And I think it's so important, even comorbidities like having diabetes, that influences your energy levels.
And you can't not eat.
You can't not eat, or you can't not eat properly, know. So considering all those things, it's really important to look at your health in general and not just say, you know what, it's a phase, I'm going to push through, I'll be fine, It's from pushing through that we get 3 years down the line, and then we have a complete burnout where there's a lot of pieces that need to be picked up.
So, Wilene, in terms of you do a full assessment, okay, that I don't think that's going to be one appointment, hey?
We normally do it in one appointment. It's about 2 hours, 2.5 hours that we spend.
But it's a good chunk of time.
Because we really want to get to the background things. Yes. Like, when did things start happening? What are your roles in total? We've seen teachers with being on 100 committees, teaching 7 extramurals, giving extra lessons, spending time with that child, making sandwiches for the child who doesn't bring at lunch, Teachers are givers.
That's what teachers are like.
So they give a lot of themselves. Yeah. But there's that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. So.
And I think you get a lot of teachers who are perfectionists as well. So they want everything to be done perfectly. It's not good enough. And so, a lot of the burnout happens because we expect too much. We push. And as you're saying, it's like I have to be on every committee. I have to be, the perfect TA teacher. And sometimes, good enough. Good enough is better than, burnt out and not coping with life in general. So I think we have to touch on executive function skills, because I think a lot of, again, you can't be an organized person without good executive function skills, and we're not all born with a perfect score. So can we talk a little bit about what falls under executive function skills?
Sure,
putting you on the spot here now a little bit, but we can do it together.
I think there's so much that it's not all, I want to say, equally as important, So I think it depends on where you are and what your priorities and your tasks at school are. But I think a big part of that is time management.
I was just going to say, running late with every meeting, those teachers who always come in late, or
with the books and the things falling, and so that's a big thing that we see.
So time management.
And really that organization skill of, having your ducks in a row.
Yeah. I have all my stuff for the day.
You see those teachers with the color coordinated files. The year is planned before January starts.
Yes.
That's all great.
Yes. Yeah, but we know you there, hey? We can see you there.
We're not calling any names out tonight. But that ability to be organized is a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Although it saves you when there is an unexpected, unforeseen situation. So, it's kind of weighing up where you're putting your time and your effort in to be able to reap that benefit when the wheels fall off, because then you have that backup.
Yeah.
Planning tonight for tomorrow's session is going to put you under pressure every single day.
Sure.
Instead of just saying, okay, I'm taking this Saturday and I'm planning for the whole week.
Yes.
Or I'm taking this holiday.
Yes.
I'm sorry, it sucks.
Yes.
But I'm planning the term.
Yes.
And then the term can be much more easy breezy. And when those things happen,
Yeah.
then it's easier to manage and to keep going.
Yeah. So time management, organization skills, planning. What about, as you say, things like sleep, energy management,
Yeah.
knowing when do I work best. Some teachers do work best at night, and they can work up till 10 because they are night owls. Some prefer to get up at 6 and put in some time before school. So it's all of that as well. Knowing we're talking executive function skills. So, there are at least 7 or 8. We've dealt with 3. So I'm trying to think of what other skills teachers need, because these are skills that we also expect our students to just be able to do and know. And often they don't. So we call them lazy, and we call them dysfunctional, and we call them unmotivated, and we call them all kinds of names. But it's really just that they're struggling with the executive function skills. So I don't know if you are hearing, if any of this is resonating with you folks, the fact that you struggle to meet deadlines, okay? Your phase head expects your exam papers to be handed in, on a certain date, and you're scrambling around to try and get them in on time. Or you are always running late for school, always running late for meetings. That road to school is stressful because, heck, if the robots are red all the way,
big trouble.
You're going to be late. So time management is huge. Just being organized, planning in advance. Even if it means taking a Saturday morning or a Saturday afternoon and getting your ducks in a row so that you start the week, on the front foot. You don't start the week behind foot. So yeah, I think in terms of what teachers are required to do, if there are any teachers who are saying, yo, that sounds like me, or yo, I have a colleague like that, then maybe there's something that you can take away from this session in terms of getting help, going to see an OT, and trying to get them to or identify the areas that you can work on in order to put some practical steps and strategies into place. I suppose it's also like making your lunch the night before instead of trying to make all the lunches the day before school.
Yeah, or even just something as simple as like cooking for 2 nights. You have one set of pots. You're ready tomorrow night. It's just dishing up. It saves you maybe an hour, which you can either spend with your family or, spend the time prepping or just sorting out the Tupperware cupboard. It just gives you a little bit of that flexibility. And I think there's so much on our plates and there's so much that we need to do every day that if we can steal time somewhere, let's do that. And maybe on the other side, being aware of what's stealing time from us. Are we leaving late? So we're sitting in traffic on our way to work every day, and then now it takes us 40 minutes instead of 20. Are we scrolling on Facebook or social media while we're marking? So every, 5 minutes, there's a little bit of distraction. What are we doing throughout the day? That's stealing 5 and 10 minutes here and there, which we could have used more productively.
So we're getting to the end of this sort of information session, and then we're going to invite some questions to come in. Because, again, we want you to take some very valuable strategies and solutions away with you that you can implement from now, from tomorrow. There's no reason why you have to wait. So I suppose in terms of advice, we've spoken about the warning signs of burnout. We've spoken about, how to listen to colleagues and what colleagues might be saying. If your mood has changed, if you are a little bit more irritable, that you aren't eating properly, sleeping properly. Are there any other, I suppose, sort of red flags that you've heard clients or people talking about?
I think it's when we start noticing that we're starting to take shortcuts. When we need to set up an exam, I'll just use one from 2 years ago because I left it too late to do a good enough job. Or you know what, I can't mark this, So I'm going to ask my husband, who knows nothing about English language, to help me mark, because otherwise I'm not going to get it. And when we start dropping these balls, and really when it starts affecting our professionalism, we need to know that, you know what, maybe what I'm doing isn't working and isn't healthy and in the best interest of me and the children that I'm teaching.
Yeah. And no one wants to get called into the principal's office to say, listen, you've missed deadlines. You know, this is the third term now that you haven't handed your things on time. So you want to just avoid all of that. And I think in terms of sort of practical strategies, shall we do some comments quickly before we open up for the questions? How do I support my teachers that is close or suffering from burnout? Teachers are extremely dedicated and working extremely hard. So how do I support them as best I can? Okay, that's a great question from Principal.
It sounds like you're off to a great start, you know, noticing and caring.
That, yes.
I think that's a really great start. Because I think as a principal, you have your own set of responsibilities and, you know, that trickle down effect. And when we see that open door policy where teachers feel comfortable to approach you to say, listen, I'm not coping, you know, this extra tuck shop duty is really just taking away the 10 minutes that I have for a coffee and a snack. You know, when you're open to hearing these things, it's really makes the staff really feel heard. And I think that's quite important as a first step. The second step would be like, what can we practically do at school? You know, do we need to rope in more parents to help out with small tasks that we can take away from teachers? Do we need to do a course or a workshop with the staff to give them the more specific tools for the specific school and situation and the specific learners? You know, I'm thinking learners from Elson, those teachers have different needs and different requirements from them compared to a different school. So I think looking at specifically what your teachers are struggling with. If it's general overload, burnout because of too much admin, why don't we all sit and tackle this admin together? And I know a pizza and a cup of coffee to go with that doesn't solve the problem, but it just gives a little bit of
a door to communication. And I love it when we come together as a staff and we identify strengths and weaknesses and personality, like almost a personality profile where we identify the people that are very good administrators and who enjoy administration because that's their personality type. And so they are the ones that will never be late or never miss a deadline because it aligns with how their brains work. And then you have the other teachers that are a bit more on the creative side and who are coming up with brilliant ideas and, you know, maybe they are better at strategizing and, you know, coming up with mission statements and whatever. And we then say, okay, can we use our talents and weaknesses or can we use our personality profiling to say, right, you're good at that. We're going to delegate those to you. And we're going to try and help those who's, you know, are not so good at those particular things and give them something else to do. So that is also possibly, Walter, what you could do at your staff is try and identify, you know, have that kind of conversation, look at strengths and weaknesses amongst your team and see who's going to need more support in which areas and which staff members can mentor and help those that are not coping so well. Because certainly first year teachers or, you know, teachers who haven't been in the profession long, they honestly are needing more support because nobody prepares you for the admin load of a teacher. No one. There's no textbook that's going to tell you exactly how much time it's going to take to set an exam, to mark an exam, whatever. So if I could give any advice to principals listening there is spend a bit of time just mentoring the younger teachers, helping them with the executive function skills, their admin, all those, how to deal with parents, how to speak to parents, how to maintain a professional line. And I'm sure that when you mentor the younger teachers with all these things, it will honestly ripple down to everybody. You know, a happy staff is a happy school and is happy children, because if teachers are happy, everybody's happy. So Yeah, I think it's very, very important that we support our younger teachers, that we speak to one another, that we are kind, compassionate, that we lead with empathy, and it's not punitive, where we punish or we kind of come with this, oh, you haven't done this or you haven't done that, but rather how can we support you going forward? How can we positively impact your career, your professionalism, so that you could be the best teacher out there. So I think closing thoughts, we spoke about a workshop. I mean, it might be a good idea to speak to your staff and see, is there a need to have more workshops on this topic, where we could have a webinar, we could have a workshop if you're in Port Elizabeth, come and talk to your teachers individually, as a group, on how to better support them with admin. I mean, it's admin and it's everything else that teachers have to deal with. I think, are there comments there? Oh, we've got teachers from Tarkestad, from Rustenburg, from Phillipstown, I saw Brits. Goodness, this is wonderful. Okay, Ashley's got a question. What does she say? I have 11 years of experience, new to a grade. Teaching the curriculum feels unattainable. I plan well in advance, revise my planning, and catch up if I'm behind. I get to work early, plan my day. I want all my kids to understand the concepts I teach and feel defeated. Sorry, the camera's in the way. If they don't, I feel like I'm trying my best but never really feel accomplished because I don't get through the work. There isn't enough time. Yeah, Ashley, you're not alone. I think you've just literally summed up. You've spoken for all the teachers who are on this webinar. The fact that there's never enough time in the day, firstly, that you can go to bed at night and still be thinking about the next day or what you haven't accomplished yet. And that sort of leaves you with that feeling of on a hamster wheel, like I'm never getting end. It never ends. So I think you've just hit the nail on the head. So I think your question is, how do I move on from there? So what do I do? I mean, 11 years experience, If you're new to a grade, I suppose, you're trying to adapt to a different content level, because the admin would be pretty much the same unless you've moved from a high school from a primary school to a high school. I'm not too sure. But how would you speak to her there, Wilene? I never really feel accomplished because I don't always get through the work. There just isn't enough time. You're gonna start and I'm gonna finish with an idea.
All right. Something that I share with all my patients, irrespective of whatever the challenge is, give yourself grace. I think we expect a lot from ourselves. We expect to master everything the moment we started. I mean, if you think of a baby starting to walk, they fall quite a few times before they get the hang of walking, and only then they get to running. And I think it's quite a valid experience, wanting your children in your classroom to do the best that they can do, and almost feeling like a failure if they don't. But I think give yourself grace and give yourself the time to maybe, try and adapt the way that you're doing things, try new ideas, even asking some of the learners, what do they think? How do they want to learn a bit about, biology? What do they want to do? Do they want to go physically outside and go, pick some flowers, pick some leaves if they need to learn about something in nature? Including them, I think, also gives them that ownership in the lessons, and that just fosters that desire for learning as well. And that can also take a little bit of a pressure off of you. So I think start by giving yourself grace, and then it's okay to change things as well.
Yes, and I think to add on to that is, you've got your to-do list. We've all got a to-do list. We love lists. So I have my diary and I have a checklist. And as I get through the tasks for the day, it's such a good feeling to be able to cross things off. I never get to cross everything off. So I get through as much as I can, and then I have to decide, okay, whatever's left, how important is it? How urgent is it? can I delegate this? Okay, because it's not important, it's not urgent, and it's a time waster. You spoke about time wasting. So I think it's called, I hope I'm going to get it right, it's the Eisenhower matrix, where you literally take your to-do list and you put it into 4 quadrants. This is important and urgent. This is urgent but not important. This is important but not urgent. And this is a time waster. I don't do it, or I delegate it. So that you don't feel that you have to get everything done in one day. You can move things over to another day or another week or another month if it's not important. It's urgent. Like a dentist appointment might be urgent and it might be important, but you can move it. It doesn't have to be done
right now,
today or tomorrow. So you can Google that. I think it's called the Eisenhower. I hope it is. But I've got it in my diary. I don't use it, but it's there. So I can put things into these different quadrants and decide, is it something that I'm going to stress about now and I can't stop stressing until it's done, or can I just move it over to another day or another week? So questions, teachers, this is your opportunity now. Don't be shy. Desiree, I've been teaching for 30 years and I still prep daily and work every weekend. There is always something that can be improved or changed or tweaked, and the learners have changed so much over time. I think a lot depends on our personalities. I've always worked on the urgent versus important scenario, especially when it comes to family. You see, she's just touched on another little issue there. Is family should always come first.
Definitely.
I think family should always come first. They shouldn't play second fiddle. I think life is too short. Our kids grow up way too quickly. And I would always prioritize my family and spending time with my children over work. I'm not saying work isn't important, and I'm not saying it's not urgent, but it's about how do I schedule this so that I can attend my children's tennis match, hockey, derby day, fete, whatever it is. So never shortchange yourselves or your children, because life really goes past too quickly.
I think something that goes along so well with that, Phil, is boundaries, setting up the boundaries, saying no.
Yeah.
Can't do everything, I'm sorry.
And mom guilt, eh?
Yeah.
Mom guilt is, you beat yourself up because you're not there for your children, or you're not doing enough, or you haven't done X and you haven't done Y. So we mustn't do that. We must honestly put yourselves first. You are the most important piece of the puzzle. One conversation that regularly pops up between educators are in relation to parents. Yes, we've just spoken about that. Okay, let's touch on that then. Parents hugely unrealistic. Yes. So teachers are expected to be always on.
On call always.
Right, that WhatsApp is always on. You can WhatsApp a teacher, you can email a teacher, all times of the day or night, but you'd never pick up the phone and phone a teacher at 11 o'clock at night, would you? But
No.
you'd WhatsApp, right?
But would you WhatsApp
would
your
you?
doctor at 8 at
Would
night?
you? Really? No.
The boundaries
So
are
boundaries,
lacking.
yes. Again, I think every school must have sort of a communication policy where there are times that teachers are not available. And I think that needs to be communicated right at the beginning of the year. I would always say to parents, I send a letter saying, this is my WhatsApp or this is my email address. I'm available up until 3:30 in the afternoon. Thereafter, it's my family time. And I think if you put that out there from the get-go, and don't blur the lines.
Yeah.
If you've said you're not available after 3 or after 3:30, don't reply. So because you're wanting to teach parents what your expectations are. So you don't have to always be available. You don't have to always answer everything, Those boundaries are so, so important, especially the young teachers as well, because I know what it's like. You want to be available, you want to help, you want to give, But we've got to also just look after your own self-care.
I think that's where maybe the principals can come in again, make it the staff policy that no personal numbers are given. There's lots of other methods of communication that are more effective.
I think email is almost the safest if it's after 3:30, because I know as parents you want to get it off your chest, or you want to just put it out there in writing, but it's not as invasive than a WhatsApp.
Yeah.
So by all means, and also just another little tip. If you're angry or you're feeling frustrated or you are annoyed at a teacher, write the email, but please don't send it. Do not send it until the next morning. Then you read that email again. And if you need to make some adjustment to your tone, you've slept on it, and it's much easier to tackle it in the morning. But don't send an email. Don't send a WhatsApp when you're feeling emotionally frustrated or angry, because it won't have the same effect than if you've had to sleep on it, you've calmed down, you've thought about it, and then you can send the message. Sue is saying, been teaching for 30 years, do my weekly prep early on a Saturday morning so that I can start my new week feeling organized. I can then spend the rest of the weekend with family. I also take one afternoon a week where I don't take marking home. Well done, Sue.
Yeah, I love it.
I use email with parents and set clear boundaries. If you email after 4, I'll answer tomorrow. You see?
And I think that's
not rocket science.
It's once we set that boundary, it's easy. I don't even want to ask who has received a 7-minute long voice note from a parent about something that could have been said in 3 sentences.
Right.
Something that could have stayed until tomorrow, something that could have been a note in the homework book.
Yeah.
So I think the importance of setting those clear boundaries and sticking to them.
Yeah.
A boundary is going to mean nothing if you answer every message at 8 at night in any ways.
Yeah.
So being firm about that is really something that you owe to yourself. That's one thing you can do that definitely makes a big difference in terms of time management.
Yeah, 100%. So setting those boundaries, looking after yourself, putting time aside for yourself, your family, and yes, be professional about your work, but you have to have those clear, we'll take Friday afternoon and I'm going to go and play with my horses. That is my time. Okay, Lena, repeatedly rehashing the same concerns and having to manage these things while having to balance teaching, admin, and still giving quality, care to all learners in your care. These concerns are usually shared with such care and love for the learners concerned, which further adds to stress levels and emotional well-being of teachers. So not forget about the children when our teaching day ends. Yeah, I know.
And that's why you got into this profession in the first place.
Yeah,
but that's
certainly not for the money.
Even more reason to look after yourself, so you can keep giving and keep caring and keep teaching in the wonderful way that you are. It's really important. If we can't look after ourselves, we won't be able to look after the children.
Yeah, we didn't really speak on things like of having a visual planner, having a calendar, a write-on, write-off calendar, so that you can have something visual in your home. Because a lot of the time we have our diaries, and we write things in our diaries, but the rest of our family don't know. So if there's a market day coming up and you know you're not going to be at home on Saturday for the whole day because there's a market day, schedule that on the family calendar so that hubby knows you're going to be there, kids know you're not available or whatever. So, visual planners, calendars, diaries, checklists we've spoken about, time management, not sort of scrolling on Facebook when you could be doing something more productive. These are just some of the things. What else? What is almost something that you as an OT cannot do without in terms of management, time executive function? What's your thing? This is my thing. I can't do without it.
For me, it's delegating. Because I know I can't be everywhere. I know I can't see everyone. I know I cannot
be all things to all men all the time.
As much as I would love to.
Yeah.
So knowing, this is something that I need to ask someone else to do. This is something.
Asking for help and support.
Yeah. And the more you ask, the easier it becomes. It's really about starting by putting your hand up and saying, sure, this feels like a lot. Like, and then the moment one person starts saying, it's a lot, the hands start popping up really quickly.
Yeah.
And when we have that community, it's so much easier to figure out a plan together. If fundraising is an issue, doing it alone is going to be huge. But if everyone works together, we all just need to do like a little bit.
Yeah.
And then it's so much more manageable and attainable in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for me, the thing that I cannot do without, and I sort of use the two together, the one is my phone, because I schedule a lot of my appointments on my Google Calendar, which is on my phone, and my diary. My diary and my phone are my two things that I can't live without. So they are my tools. And yes, I've been there where I've been at the end of my rope. And I haven't stopped because I haven't seen the warning signs. So I think if nothing else, listen to your body, listen to yourself, know when you're getting to the end, and put up your hand and say, I need help with this. I'm not coping with this. I need to come and see a professional. And it's okay. We don't have to be embarrassed. We don't have to be sort of shying away from the fact that we need help. It's actually very brave to know when it's time I need to go and seek some help.
And if it can be any reassurance, I mean, as educators, especially if you're working in a government school, you have medical aid. You can use the medical aid benefits. It doesn't need to add a financial stress on top of it as well. So finding a therapist that claims for medical aid, which is really makes it much more accessible when you don't have to have the financial concerns associated as well.
What is burnout sort of classed as? Almost on the DSM-5. What would it?
It's got its own ICD-10 code. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. So you see, it
It's
can
real.
actually be a diagnosis, and then you have the chronic medication that you can get from your medical aid that gets approved, and sessions with a therapist can get. What do they call it? PMB.
Yeah.
So it's great. I mean, that's great that we have these, I suppose, pathways that we can follow. So, yeah, I think we're going to close now, unless there are any more questions. But to say that, honestly, if you feel that you would like a workshop at your school, because as a principal, you are seeing lots of teachers being booked off for burnout, when one teacher goes, it means somebody has to pick up. Because they're not there. So you want to avoid teachers being booked off for prolonged periods of time because of burnout. Prevention is way better than cure. So we can do possibly workshops, we'll do a follow-up. And I think what we'll do is we'll send out a little feedback after the session. So tomorrow I will email you all. Thank you so much for watching, by the way. And I'll email you and I'll just give you a little feedback, maybe a little Google form, quick 4 questions. You fill those in and you send those back, and then we will plan a part 2, because I really think we've just touched on the tip of the iceberg. How do you know if one should see an OT or another professional, Wilene?
So whether the question is any professional, like an OT, when it starts impacting your functioning, when you see you're not doing things the way you've been doing, when the balance isn't there, when the quality of how you do things, whether it's interacting with individuals, when that starts lacking, then it's time to see a professional. Whether it's an OT or a psychologist or a psychiatrist, that would really depend on a case-by-case situation and where you are on the, I want to say, scale of things.
Yeah, so she's asking, again, who would be the first port of call? Would you say your GP would be your first port of call and they would refer?
A GP would be a great place to start, but you don't need a referral to go to an OT or to go to a psychologist. So it's really about, where you are in the process. And, if you get an appointment with your GP in 2 days' time, then after that, they say maybe go to an OT, then you make an appointment 3 days later, so kind of could drag out the process a bit. But you're always welcome to email us and say, this is my situation.
How do people get hold of you? So where will they find you?
We're everywhere. We're on Facebook, Instagram. You can find us on Google. So you can just pop us an email and say, you know, this is what I'm experiencing. Is this for OT or is this maybe for something else first?
Great. That's a great idea. It's just to email your concerns through. This is what I'm feeling. This is what's happening. Can I come and see you? And then if you have availability, they don't have to wait 2 weeks for an appointment.
No. And it might not even be, can I come and see you? I might say, you know, I think you need to go to a psychologist rather. Or, you know what, this seems like a bigger thing. You know, we might need a workshop for the school because this doesn't sound like a just you concern. It sounds like there are more concerns at the school. So it really just having a bit more information just helps to know which is the best
to go from there.
road to take. Yeah,
I think Sue's also said here, I've learned to say no if I've asked. Yeah, because like we started off by saying teachers are giving people. You know, immediately we want to jump in and rescue, and we want to help, and we want to nurture. So we put our hands up for everything, and we leave ourselves way down at the bottom of the list. But if anything you've learned with this little session is what are the warning signs, what to look out for, know how much you can take on, know how big your plate is. You know, is your plate a saucer or is your plate one of those massive big plates that you can, you know, get from a restaurant? That's what you've got to decide for yourselves. But contact Wilene Wiggill, occupational therapists in Port Elizabeth, if you have any questions or concerns. You will get an email from me tomorrow, everybody that has watched, with a little feedback form. Please fill that in and let us know how we can proceed if we want to do a part 2. And thank you for joining me. It's been so fun.
It has. It's always great. Yeah.
Thanks everybody for watching. I'm going to sign out. My name's Philippa Fabry, Education Services. You can also find us on Facebook and on Instagram, Education Services. We are here to support teachers and parents and children in the classroom. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. Bye now.
Bye.